Hello everyone, this is Kat and welcome back to My Hero Academia Podfics. This will be the continuation of Todoroki's Conspiracy. This will be Part 4, Chapters 7 and 8. Chapter 7, Eijiro's Musings, Katsuki's Eavesdropping. Eijiro Kirishima likes to see the best in people, and why wouldn't he? People are great, you know. Well, some aren't. Villains are pretty solidly in the not manly category, because it really isn't cool to try murdering for fun and all, but most people are good, in Eijiro's book. But Eijiro knows that not everyone is so open, like Bakubro, who's definitely bad at letting people in, and has a nasty habit of exploding at those who try to get close. Literally. But it's fine. Eijiro knows that some people have walls, and with his quirk, Eijiro is fantastic at breaking through walls. Even metaphorical ones. And while Bakugo is like an awkward tsundere guy who doesn't really like letting people know that he's happy, Eijiro is okay with that. He's like practically certified for translating Bakugese, so it's all good. Another person who doesn't seem open is Midoriya. Well, okay, that's half true. His spunky, green-haired powerhouse of a buddy is always down for a chat and is like super open with his feelings and all, and that's super manly. There's no shame in crying after all, but Midoriya is really skittish, and when he's upset, he never really seems to say what's wrong. Which isn't great at all, because Midoriya helps others all the time when they're upset, and Eijiro thinks that Mido deserves to get what he's given, so while that sounds vaguely threatening, maybe Eijiro needs to change how he words some things. It's not too important. The problem is, Mido doesn't have the same walls as Bakubro. While Bakubro hides behind explosions and snarled words, Mido just shifts the focus elsewhere. There's no walls, not that Eijiro can see, because his peer never hides his tears or his smiles. Nah, Mido is more like water. Visible, but hard to grasp and comprehend sometimes. Get him too cold, too startled, and he freezes up. Too hot, too scared, and he disappears. Yeah, that sounds about right. Mido is water, where Bakugo has walls, and that's why Eijiro can't seem to understand Mido as well as he does Bakubro, despite one being an apparently open book and the other being a locked journal. Rocks have never been good at floating, after all. Eijiro is just glad that, while he may not be the best bud for helping Midoriya, the guy has some friends who seem to be ready to support him through thick and thin. There's Todoroki, Shinbro, Uburaraka, and Ida. It's hard to get a bro into everyone's name, okay? Eijiro's trying, but some names just have no leeway. Who are super cool and manly and are part of the, according to Uburaraka, Deku squad. Although Eijiro lately has noticed that the four don't seem to be quite so open either, and he's not talking about them opening up to others. No, the four just don't seem to be open to letting others near Mido, like, at all. Well, okay, not at all. Mido still talks to the rest of the class, and the four don't stand in between his friendships, which is good because being a jealous friend is super unmanly. But Eijiro can't recall when Mido had last been seen talking to a teacher, or within 5 feet of a teacher without one of the four aforementioned bros nearby, if not in front of him like guards, which is odd, because they weren't always so closed off. They used to be pretty open to others, too, but now? Now it's all weird. When Eijiro looks at the class rep, he expects to see a serious yet warm expression, someone who's inviting and always ready to lend a hand. Now he seems to show a firm ferocity, clenched hands, and anger-filled frowns. When Eijiro looks at the class's mystery boy, he expects, well, a mystery, not the fired-up glances and curled-up lips. When he sees their beloved gravity girl, he expects optimism and rosy cheeks. Instead, he finds disgust and disdain. So yeah, something's up, and Eijiro's going to find out what it is. When Katsuki goes on his way to lunch, he spots shitty hair in the corner of his eye. For a moment he thinks that the redhead is trying to join him because that's what the idiot always does, but instead he goes to Icy Hot, the half-and-half bastard, Deku's friend. The fuck? Katsuki questions, the words leaving his mouth unbidden, and Katsuki doesn't get it, doesn't see why Shitty Hair would want to hang out with Deku's pals. So naturally, he follows. How else is he going to get answers? It doesn't occur to Katsuki that he could simply just ask. Katsuki follows the two as they go through the hallways, watching from a distance as they sneak into an empty classroom, and Katsuki hides outside the room, listening in with his ear pressed to the mostly closed door, careful not to nudge it open. You wanted to talk about Midoriya? Icy Hot asks, voice as dull and grating as always. Yeah, Shitty Hair says, and Katsuki can practically see the fist bump that the redhead pumps into the air. I've noticed that something's been up, and I've been pretty worried. Is something wrong, dude? There's a moment of silence, and if Katsuki had to guess, he'd lay his money on the pause being a chance for Icy Hot to study Shitty Hair. He's probably right to, like always, because Icy Hot speaks up after a moment. You're sure that you want to know? Icy Hot asks, and Katsuki rolls his eyes. You won't go spreading this around, will you? Spreading what around? What the fuck could be so important about Deku that it'd need to be kept quiet? Yeah, I do, and I promise. Shitty Hair says, and Icy Hot sighs. All right, another pause, and then... Midoriya is being abused. Huh? Katsuki almost chokes on his spit, eyes blowing wide open. What kind of fucking... There's no way. Anienko would never. Whoa, man, hold up. Shitty Hair seems to at least have a not-so-shitty brain, because he sounds confused and not quite believing. How do you know this? Did Midobro tell you that? Like Deku would ever ask for help. Katsuki thinks, rolling his eyes, and then feels something sharp twist in his chest, because he's the reason Deku would never ask. Not that Katsuki cares. Kirishima, look me in the eyes and tell me you haven't noticed. Icy Hot says, voice colder than usual, and Katsuki raises an eyebrow at the emotions. He flinches when startled. He's overly apologetic and halfway to a panic attack whenever he thinks that he's done something wrong. He's more self-sacrificing than most pro-heroes, as if he has no self-worth. He's constantly covered in bruises and cuts, and it's always worse when he trains with All Might. I figured that the first part was just Midobro being shy. Shitty Hair admits, and Katsuki winces because he knows the exact reason that Deku started flinching and keeps flinching to this day. But the injuries are from training, aren't they? How does All Might factor into this? Icy Hot sighs, a sharp inhale and exhale that makes Katsuki prickly with anticipation. I haven't told the others this yet, but All Might is Midoriya's father. What? What? Shitty Hair asks, vocalizing Katsuki's same thoughts. Think about it, Icy Hot says. Since the first week of school, hasn't everyone compared Midoriya's quirk to All Might's? The same undeniable force, the raw power that seems to surround them at every moment that their power is activated. It's clear that Midoriya has inherited his father's power. But Midobro's quirk breaks him, Shitty Hair protests. It used to, Icy Hot agrees. But quirks grow stronger with each generation. It makes sense that Midoriya wouldn't be able to control it right away. I guess that makes sense, Shitty Hair admits, and Katsuki scowls, teeth clenching, because it doesn't make fucking sense. Deku can't be All Might's son, because Deku has a dad. Katsuki knows this. He met the man when they were both toddlers. He was... What was Deku's father like? Katsuki can't remember, and that startles him. In the classroom, Shitty Hair seems to be thinking about Deku's absentee dad, because he says, Bakubro said that Mido's dad hasn't been around in years, and that he abandoned his family. Why would All Might do that? Sometimes. Heroes aren't all that they're cracked up to be. Icy Hot says, as if that explains anything. I think All Might was disappointed in Midoriya, although I'm not sure why he would be. But now that Midoriya's in UA, All Might is hurting him, Kirishima, and using his idolism as a weapon to make Midoriya shatter himself in an attempt to get the love he deserves. And Katsuki shifts at that, glaring at nothing because Icy Hot is starting to make a lot more sense than Katsuki likes, because didn't Deku's dad leave because the nerd was quirkless? If All Might is Deku's dad, which is ridiculous, there has to be a different explanation for everything. And was hoping for a perfect successor, the lack of a quirk would be a good reason for All Might to leave. The world knows that Katsuki abandoned Deku the moment that he didn't show up with a new flashy power, and yeah, Deku would absolutely break himself in an attempt to gain his father's love back. Katsuki isn't dumb. He knows Deku is still hurt by the lack of a father figure in his life, but All Might? No. No way. Katsuki may not remember much, but he can swear that Deku's dad wasn't anything like the big, strong symbol of peace. That man was more wiry, wasn't he? Skinny and gaunt? Yeah, that sounds right. Icy Hot must have frozen his brain cells or something to make such a conclusion. Didn't he try asking the same thing back at the sports festival, back when he dumped his stupid backstory on the nerd? But yeah, maybe the freezer burn does have a point or two. Maybe Katsuki should keep an eye out. Not that he cares, of course. He just can't stand the idea of losing a potential rival to something as low as abuse. Chapter 8. The Final Straw. When Katsuki finds out that he's been paired up with Deku for their finals, he wants to scream. It's always him with the nerd, isn't it? Just what he needs to have to deal with the nerds mumbling and panicking during the biggest test that they've yet to face. And from what Katsuki gets, there's 2 ways to pass this stupid thing, capturing the enemy or fleeing, and Katsuki just knows what Deku's going to want to do. And there's no way Katsuki's running like a wimp. No fucking way. But then, as if the pairing wasn't bad enough, the fucking rat bastard announces just who they're going to face. Bakugo and Midori will be up against All Might. The rat bastard cheers, and Katsuki feels the effects of this decision immediately. Literally feels it, because Icy Hot is so cold that the air has cooled down. Meanwhile, Roundface looks ready to punt a bitch into the sky, and Engine Legs is even stiffer than usual. Even Shitty Hair looks uncomfortable, eyes darting between All Might and Deku. Katsuki rolls his eyes at the dramatics, and promptly ignores the apprehension that he's feeling fill his gut. It'll be fine, Katsuki thinks. Beat All Might's ass. Deku won't get hurt because I'm going to win this for the both of us. Nothing bad will happen. Katsuki doesn't know why he feels the need to tell himself this. This angers him, and he scowls when Deku tries to speak to him. Kachan, Deku starts as they walk over to the bus. We need to make up a plan so when we go against All Might. I was thinking that we could avoid... Katsuki's eye twitches, and then he snaps. We're not avoiding him like cowards, Katsuki declares, glaring at the nerd. Deku frowns, eyes widening. But we can't beat him. He's All Might. His tone is reverent, almost fearful of the man's power. He could break us with a single punch if he's not careful. The nerd's voice makes Katsuki feel sick. He shoves the feeling down. Well, I just won't get hit, Katsuki states, because that's the logical answer, and Katsuki is nothing if not right. You can hide off to the side, and I'll deal with him. We're supposed to work as a team, Deku protests, but he's shaking already, and Katsuki isn't going to deal with this. Just stay out of my way, Katsuki huffs, and then they're on the bus, and Katsuki promptly ignores any of Deku's attempts to get his attention. He'll show them. He'll show them what it means to win, to overcome the odds. He doesn't show them. He doesn't fucking show them. No, instead, Katsuki is shown the truth he was desperately trying not to believe, and that he thinks he might puke over. No, he's definitely going to puke. It started fine. Okay, no, that's a fucking lie. It started awfully. Deku tried sticking up to him for once in his life, and maybe Katsuki would be proud of the nerd if he was finally growing a pair, but it wasn't the goddamn time, and Katsuki was just pissed because Deku was ruining everything. He didn't even realize that he was throwing the punch until Deku hit the floor, clutching at his cheek with teary eyes. For a moment, it felt like elementary school all over again. But that time, Katsuki didn't feel great. He didn't feel strong. He felt weak, like a pebble on the floor. Hurting the abused kid? His mind taunted, and Katsuki stormed off, trying to outrun the thought. It couldn't be true. Deku was just a nervous wreck. He wasn't abused. The teachers wouldn't hurt Deku like that, right? When have the teachers ever helped the nerd? His mind asked him, and Katsuki couldn't remember a single time. It only fueled his anger, made him more vicious. The fight itself was bad, even when he finally started working with Deku instead of against him, because All Might was the #1 hero for a reason, and he was strong and fast and everywhere, always taunting Katsuki when he was a second too slow or a smidge too weak, never enough to win. Never enough to stop the damage being done. And fuck, so much damage was done. All Might tossed him around like a rag doll, battering his body and leaving him with aches that would persist past the old wrinkly lady's healing, but aches were nothing to what All Might did to Deku. Katsuki isn't even sure now, but he thinks that All Might impaled Deku with that fence. Back when he had slammed it down on the nerd to cage him in, he impaled Deku, and didn't even bat an eye, didn't even check to see if Shitty Nerd was okay or not. No, All Might just laughed in his face, because Deku was failing and impaled and bleeding, because Deku was in pain. Katsuki's going to be sick. He's going to be sick, and then he's going to riot. He's going to beat All Might's ass for real this time, somehow, because he's sitting on a cot in old wrinkly lady's office, and Deku is still passed the fuck out and covered in bandages and looks far too frail for Katsuki's liking, and nothing is okay. Icy Hot can't be right, Katsuki tells himself as he sees some of the white bandages turn red right where the fence had hit Deku. Icy Hot can't be right, Katsuki tells himself as All Might shows no regrets, shows no hint of sorrow for what he's done. Icy Hot can't be right, Katsuki tells himself as Recovery Hag complains about how Deku got himself injured, not that All Might had used so much strength. Katsuki tells himself that as their homeroom teacher just sighs and shakes his head before leaving the room, not even correcting the old lady. Icy Hot cannot be right, Katsuki tells himself as Recovery Hag exits the room, not even checking on Deku's condition to go see one of his stupid classmates who are in no way as hurt as Deku. He doesn't believe himself anymore, and he's going to be sick. Katsuki resolves to take care of this mess one way or another, but he knows he can't do it alone. Fuck, Katsuki whispers into the room, empty except for himself and the unconscious nerd a bed away from him. I have to admit that Icy Hot is right. To his face. Katsuki supposes it's a small price to pay, to make sure that his rival is okay. Koski doesn't throw up from his realizations from today. He may get sick from the idea of taking care of Deku alone, but he'll stand strong, because he's a fucking hero. All right, everyone. This concludes Chapter 8 of Todoroki's Conspiracy. Chapter 9 will be next. Hope you guys are still enjoying, and as always, thank you so much for listening.